Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I am the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the chapter goals in BNI Connect. One of the things that was put into the system a couple of years ago was the ability for chapters to use the goal planning 101 procedures in BNI and enter that information directly into BNI Connect. One of the benefits for doing this is that it tracks your progress as you're going through the year. So month by month, as you're entering information into the PALMS reports and recording all your referrals and your attendance and your memberships and everything else, you can then month by month compare with what your goals were for your chapter. One of the other great things about it is it also allows you to really plan out your entire leadership team term with things that you may want to do with your chapter, activities or educational moments or other things to keep your chapter on track. As a longtime member myself, I've been in BNI since 2002, so I'm celebrating about 13 years in BNI, and having been on the leadership team many times. I think I've been president 3 or 4 times in my chapter, as well as vice president, educational coordinator, a number of different roles. But one of the mistakes that we make is that we tend to think about BNI on BNI day. And the rest of the week, we're off doing our jobs and we're doing our other things. So when it comes to actually long-term strategic planning for the chapter, we really need to take the time out of our busy lives and just sit down and do it. And the goal planning in BNI Connect can really help you to organize the next 6 months or even 12 months of your chapter's progress. I'm going to show you how all that works in just a second. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. The first of which is that this is a live webinar. So if you have any questions whatsoever as we're going through this material, please do ask those questions. Best way to ask a question is to type that question into the questions panel. I'll see it pop up on my screen and I'll be able to answer that question as we're going through the material today. We're scheduled for approximately 30 minutes worth of content. I do try to be very respectful of everybody's time and busy schedules. I will try to end the actual content portion of this by the bottom of the hour. That being said, I am always happy to stay on these calls and take as many questions as you guys want to ask. So feel free, if you do have some extra time past the 30 minutes, by all means ask questions and I will stay on this call as long as necessary to answer every single one of them. This call is also being recorded in its entirety. It will be made available in a couple of different places. The first place that you will be able to find this webinar will be on the support site. The best way to get to the support site is to click on the question mark. The question mark is here in the upper right-hand corner, and this will take you to BNI Connect Global Support. It is support.bniconnect.com, and you'll see our list of webinars here. And if you go to the chapter training and documentation section, you'll see our recorded webinars. So very shortly, this will be included in the June 2015 series here. We already have all of our other webinars have been uploaded. So you can go check any of those out, and this one will be in this slot just probably by tomorrow. You can also go directly to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, and you can see all of our recorded content up there. It includes our webinars, but also other things like educational moments. We do a series of short little 3-minute videos to help you through BNI Connect, as opposed to the longer formatted webinars. So do check us out, and if you'd like to be notified, subscribe as well if you want to see when new videos are coming. All right, but let's take a look at the content today. So the goals program. In order to get to the goals program, we do have to get beyond the home screen. The home screen has most of the stuff that we're going to be doing as a member on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, passing referrals and recording our one-to-ones and all of that stuff. But to get to some of the other things, we have to get into the menus up here along the top. Now, the way I always remember where to go is if you're looking to enter stuff, if you're looking to do stuff in BNI Connect, go to the operations. That's the day-to-day operations of your chapter. If you're looking to just get stats back out of the system, then you go to reports. That's where you're going to find the POMS report. It's where you're going to find the roster and things like that. Because we're going to be managing and entering our goals, the place to go for this is to the operations menu. So I'm going to go to operations, and this is a chapter level function for directors that may be on the call. Operations chapter. And once we get to operations chapter, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do here, so, meeting management and entering visitors and the mentoring program. But what we're going to be working on today is manage goals. So again, we went to operations chapter and then manage goals. And we have two different things here. We have enter chapter goals and view chapter goals. The view chapter goals function, as we're going through the year, we can monitor the goals as they're going along. So it's kind of like a goals report. Now, just about everybody in the chapter will have access to view the chapter goals. So it is something that you can share with your chapter. However, in order to enter the chapter goals, usually you do have to be one of the top 3 on the leadership team, or the executive leadership team, as some places call it. That would be the president, the vice president, and the secretary treasurer. Usually those 3 positions will have abilities to enter the chapter goals. So let's go ahead and click on Enter Chapter Goals to see what this looks like. Now, the first thing you'll be presented with is the ability to choose which months you'd like to set the goals for, as well as what your long-term vision is and your mission statement for the chapter. Now, the way that we work with chapter goals is in 6-month series. Typically in BNI, our 6 months series coincide with the leadership team terms, which go from April through September, and then from October 1st through the end of March. So it's usually those 2 6-month periods that we're setting up our goals for as well. So by default, it's going to show you the next 6-month period, assuming you've already done the current 6-month period. But you can choose any date range you'd like to. I can go back and redo the April goals if I want to, or I can start with June if I just wanted to start with this month, or I could even start with July if I'd like to start with next month going forward. Really, whatever you'd like to do. The long-term vision is really, where do you want to take your chapter? Not so much in a numbers standpoint, because that's what we're doing with all of the goals themselves, is we're going to be putting a whole bunch of numbers in. This is more from an idea standpoint. So here I'm working with the Shiver region in Antarctica, and I'm working with my Burr chapter, and we're going to be looking at a long-term vision of, we want to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent of Antarctica. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So that is our long-term vision, and hopefully we can continue to pass that on to the next leadership team and the next leadership team, and maybe just make some tweaks with it along the way. Now, the mission statement for our chapter, just like a mission statement for any company or business out there, are really the guiding principles of how you're going to achieve your long-term vision. So our guiding principles for our chapter is we're here to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. So now, once you have these things established, you can click Go. And the screen's going to change slightly, and it's going to show us a 6-month spreadsheet beginning with our month that we're starting with here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Go. You'll see that it created a spreadsheet for us for the next 6 months with all of what we call the chapter success drivers listed along the left-hand side here. Our goal for this is what we're going to do is fill out the spreadsheet. So for each of the chapter success drivers, what we want to do is come up with our goal numbers and then the mechanisms for achieving that. So mechanisms would be things that we can do in our chapter to support achieving those goals. Before we get started with that, we do have one decision to make, and that is, do you like big numbers or small numbers? Because when you enter your goals, you're going to enter them all either as whole chapter numbers or per member numbers. In other words, when you're entering the total number of one-to-ones, do you want to enter the total number of one-to-ones that you want the whole chapter to achieve, or are you looking for the number of one-to-ones per member? One important distinction with this, by the way, most people use whole chapter numbers. But when it comes to per member numbers, it's important to know that it will do the calculations on the report. When you look at the view report, it's going to do the comparison based on the per member numbers of your expected number of members during that each month. So keep that in mind, and we can take a look at that. Again, I'm going to keep this as for whole chapter. I think it's a little bit easier to work with. Now, let's take a look at those chapter success drivers. We have attendance percentage, pretty straightforward. The total number of one-to-ones in the chapter. Now, for people that are here for the first time from the BNI web regions, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Chicago, and the Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C., Maryland areas, important thing to keep in mind is that with one-to-ones, BNI Connect does record both sides of the transaction. So no matter what, no matter who initiates the conversation or who you're talking about more at the one-to-one, both people do get credit for a one-to-one. So these numbers may be a little bit higher than you've traditionally thought about. CEUs are chapter educational units. The number of visitors to your chapter in a monthly period, the number of new members, the total number of members in your chapter, the number of referrals, and finally, the thank you for closed business. And again, you'll notice for each one, you're going to fill out a goal. So attendance, pretty straightforward. It kind of doesn't matter the size of the chapter or how many people. Let's look at the attendance percentage. So right now, I'm going to say that our Burr chapter, we're struggling a little bit. So we're only at about 90% attendance on a weekly basis. So what I'd like to do is by the end of the next 6-month period, I'd like to get us to 98% attendance. I want it pretty close to 100%, but I realize I'm going to be realistic here and get us close to 100. Now, what I like to do is I like to fill in our known, so where we are now, and the end, where we want to get to, and then kind of break down the difference in between. So I could say maybe after the first month, we're going to get to 92%. Then maybe we're going to get up to 95%, 97%, and then maybe we'll be at 98%. Or maybe I need to adjust those, maybe 94, 96, 97, and 98. So I'm bringing us up from the starting goal to the ending goal gradually and kind of breaking down the difference in between. Of course, you can do this in a much more scientific fashion, taking in mind that, December here, we're probably going to struggle a little bit with that because of all the holidays and everything. So maybe realistically, this is going to be 93%. But hopefully when we all make our New Year's resolutions, maybe that'll be a little bit higher. But really, it's up to you to come up with those goals and to define what's best for your chapter. What I will say is don't overcomplicate it, because it's better to have something down, go back and make changes to it later, than to overcomplicate it, never get through the exercise, and end up with nothing. So that's the goal numbers. Now let's take a look at mechanisms. Mechanisms, again, are really activities in your chapter that support achieving your goal. And again, what I'd said in the intro today was that even on leadership teams, we tend to take it week by week. So by the time we get to our chapter meeting and we're getting ready to open the meeting, said, oh yeah, you know what? I really, really wish we had thought about this meeting stimulant, but now it's too late to announce it. So you know what? We're going to do it next week. I'll get an email out, and then all of a sudden next week happens and you've still forgotten to do it. This can kind of help you plan out the next 6 months to make sure that some of those things get accomplished. So what are some mechanisms that can support the attendance percentage? Maybe one of those is, we want to, right in the beginning, get started with making sure that our vice president is sending out the control letters. So when somebody's absent, the first time they send, oh, I'm sorry, we missed you. The second time, do you realize you have 2 absences? And the standard B&I control letters. So VP sends out control letters. So we want to make sure right in the beginning of that term that they start doing that. And we can have up to 2 mechanisms on a monthly basis. So maybe as part of that, we want to do an educational moment announcing to the chapter that, hey, by the way, we're going to make sure that we're sending out the control letters. Here's the reason for the control letters. Don't be offended by them. It's because we care about you, that type of thing. So we're going to do an educational moment. I like to abbreviate that. Educational moment about attendance and letters. And what you want to do is come up with your mechanisms to support that through the next 6 months. So you're doing a bit of proactive planning. Now, if you need some ideas for these various mechanisms, there's a button up here at the top that says Chapter Goal Guide. And if I click on the Chapter Goal Guide, I'll see under the category of attendance some different ideas. One idea here is, let's see, the implementing of the mentoring program. How would that help with attendance? Well, maybe by getting members set up with mentors right away, they can understand, they can be taught the importance of showing up every week. Maybe even pairing them up with a mentor that might be struggling with attendance might encourage the mentor to show up every week. So that could be a good idea. If I want to, I can copy this and paste that in, and maybe we're going to get working on that for November. So again, take some time to fill those out. Now, as you're filling things out every once in a while, you want to make sure that you click the Save button. Just like a document, a Word document or a spreadsheet or anything else you might be working on, you definitely want to save things, especially because this is a web-based form, and BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout. So that means that if, let's say you're doing this at a leadership team meeting, you're in a heated discussion about it with your president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, you walk away for a half hour and you come back, BNI Connect will have signed you out of the system and you will lose whatever you were working on. So make sure that you do save these changes every now and again. Now, you don't have to do these in order. And as a matter of fact, I recommend that you don't do them in order. And the reason for that is a lot of these kind of flow one after the other. So like total number of one-to-ones, you kind of need to know how big your chapter is going to be before you can come out with that number. So usually what I like to do is skip all the way down to the number of members in chapter. And for this one, this is, aside from attendance, this is probably the key deciding factor for all the rest of your goals. So it's really important to come up with this number first. So again, I kind of know where we are now or where we are in the beginning of this. We're at 22 members, and I want to make sure that our chapter gets to, 35 members. So I'd like to get to 35 members in 6 months. Pretty big goal, but I think we can do it. And just like I did before with attendance, what I can do is work through these months and kind of split the difference. So that's, I don't know, about 13 members over 6 months. So we're going to need to grow by approximately 2 to 3 members per month in order to achieve that goal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start bringing this up. Maybe this is going to be 24, then 27, then 30, then 33, and finally 35. And of course, we can work on our mechanisms as well. And what are things that we can do to support the number of members in the chapter? And maybe we want to make sure that we do an educational moment on inviting. Maybe during these slow months, the slow holiday months in the middle of the winter, we want to do something to keep the chapter engaged, maybe something like a B&I game. So I'm going to put in the B&I game. And you know what? The B&I game actually spreads over 2 months. So I'm going to put that in for both months here. And if you're looking for other ideas, of course, go back to the chapter goal guide. You can scroll down and you can look for number of members in chapter, memberships per month, and get some ideas that way as well. Now, keeping things moving, we have number of members in chapter, which of course, in order to have number of members in chapter, we need to know how many new memberships that is going to be. So in order to get from for example, from 22 to 24, we're going to need at least 2 new members. Now, I like to take this in a little bit more of a conservative fashion to say that you probably want a +1 on this. The reason I say that is that every chapter has some level of attrition. People leave B&I for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's because they're not working the system. Sometimes it's because they got too busy. The system is working too well for them. Sometimes they move off to a different job or a different city or a different state. Some things we can control, some things we can't, but the fact is that on average, most chapters lose about 1 member per month. So you want to make sure that you're replacing the 1 member that left while also bringing on the members to achieve your goal. So when it comes to this one, we want to make sure, so we're going from 22 to 24, so we're going to need at least 3 new members in the month of November or in the month of October to hit our goal. And then we're going to need 4, and then we're going to need another 4, and then another 4, and then another 3, and another 3. So this will tell us how many members we need in order to achieve our next month goals. Mechanisms for this, again, we want to, maybe one of these is a bring your sub day. One thing that I know that we want to get implemented right in the beginning is making sure that our chapter is following the visitor orientation process. That's where at the end of the meeting, all of your visitors that are in attendance, you want to make sure that you bring them all as a group out of the meeting space and talk with them and introduce them to B&I and hand them an application. That is the visitor orientation process. So I'm going to make sure that our visitor hosts are trained to do that. Other things can support multiple goals as well. So the B&I game, for example, that can support multiple goals. That is going to support new memberships as well. So I'm going to make sure that we put that in the new memberships mechanisms. And you know what? That's actually going to support just about everything. So I can go and that's going to help to support visitors because we're going to put points towards visitors. It'll help with CEUs. It's going to help with one-to-ones. One-to-ones will be worth points in the game. It'll help with attendance as well, since attendance will be worth points. It'll help with our number of referrals, because referrals will be worth points. And it will help for thank you for closed business. So you can see I just made a big dent in the spreadsheet here by making sure that I took that one mechanism and copied it through to the rest of the functions. So that brings us to our new memberships. After new memberships, one of the deciding factors of new memberships is visitors. In order to have new members, you have to bring visitors to the chapter. So let's take a look at those visitors numbers here. For this one, you want to think about your closing ratio as far as how many visitors become members in your chapter, or another way to think of that is how many visitors does it take to get one new member? Most cases, it's going to be anywhere from 1 in 3 to 1 in 10 visitors ends up submitting an application. Hopefully you're on the, let's say, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 side, but really you need to look at that for yourself for your own chapter. Myself, I'm going to say that for every 4 visitors that come to the meeting, we end up with 1 application. So all I'm going to do is take my number of new members and multiply that, let's say, by 4. So we're going to need 12, 16, 16, 16, 12, and 12 visitors in each of these months. Different things that we can do to support those goals is, let's see, for bringing visitors, we have one called Just Bring One, where we try to make sure that every member brings at least 1 visitor per month. Keep in mind, this is only 3 visitors per week, so it's a very attainable goal. Maybe in November or maybe early next year, we're going to do a full Visitors Day. So I can make sure I put a Visitors Day in here. All different things we can do to support those goals. Now, let's talk about member productivity. So we're going to talk about referrals and one-to-ones and CEUs. For those, I have a pretty easy calculation for that. We're looking for all of our members to pass 1 referral per week, have 1 one-to-one per week, 1 CEU per week. So if I keep those goals in mind, really all I need to do is to multiply the number of members times 4. So if that would be 22 referrals per week times, on average, let's say 4 weeks in a month. So that's going to be 88. And then it's going to be 24 times 4, which is 96. Oops, there we go. 96, and we're going to add another 12 to that. So keep losing my mouse here. And we can fill out our goals pretty easily that way. So we add 12 to that, and 132, and 144. 35, 140, I'm sorry. So easy enough to do. Add those up, and you need to put some mechanisms in for that as well. The great thing about this is because we're looking for 1 referral per week and 1 one-to-one per week, we can put in those same goals for our number of one-to-ones as well as our CEUs. After you've done those, then we just are left with thank you for closed business. For this one, I like to look at a long-term vision for the chapter and saying, you know what, we want to be a $1 million chapter this year. We want to be a $5 million chapter this year. We want to be a $10 million, a $12 million chapter. In order to do that, how much money do you need to pass per month on a monthly basis? If you want to be, let's say, a $1 million chapter, you're going to need to average pretty close to $100,000 per month. So I'm going to put in $100,000 and add that in for each of these months. Now, when you're done with that, make sure you click the Save button, and it will save your progress, and you'll be able to follow along. Now, to follow along with the progress, what you need to do is go back to Operations Chapter, and under Chapter Goals, you're going to go to View Chapter Goals. Now, when you're viewing, it's going to give you the default of the current 6-month period as opposed to the future 6-month period. And what you'll see is that based on your POMS report, it will start filling in the actual. So we can see for April, when I had done this previously, I'd said we were looking for 86% attendance, and we actually achieved 100% attendance. We were looking for 100 one-to-ones. We actually achieved 2. 100 CEUs, we actually attained 1. Now, let's take a look at really some real statistics as opposed to some fake ones. I just want to give you one quick example of a real live chapter that does this very regularly and very well. The Tampa Bay region of BNI is famous for the executive director out there is actually one of the people that helped to develop the whole Goals Program 101. So every single one of their chapters does this every 6 months. So here is the BNI Collaborators chapter, for example. Their long-term vision is that they all play a part: passion, accountability, results, and teamwork. Their mission statement: if it ain't broke, break it. Breaking 4 million by September 24th. So here you can see it's following along with their progress. They were looking for 100% attendance. So far they've had 88, 95, and 95. Number of one-to-ones, they're looking at 420. They got 296, 217, and 157 so far. CEUs, visitors, new memberships. You can track along with their progress. You can see they're a nice sized chapter. 56, 55, 56 was their goals. They're at 52, 54, and 52 so far, so they are continually growing, getting close to their goals. And you can see they're also on track for their thank you for closed business. In order to achieve that, they needed nearly 300, and they got 2 in the 270s. So they are doing very well along their goals. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour, and that, my friends, is the goals program in BNI Connect. So what I'd like to do right now is to open it up for any questions. I do realize that some people may need to leave right away at the bottom of the hour. For those of you that do need to leave right away, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to learn more about goals and for the positive work that you're going to be doing with your chapter in the upcoming months. Reminder, it is being recorded, and it will be made available on the support site as well as on the YouTube channel. All right, we do have one question so far. Amy asks, so can we see what other chapters' goals are? If you are a director consultant, you will be able to look at some of the other chapters in your region. However, if you're a member or a leadership team of just one chapter, then you'd only be able to see your goals. If you're interested in other chapters' goals, you can talk to your executive director. They can pull those reports for you in order to share those goals with you. Does that help, Amy? Jean Marie says, can the entire leadership team enter goals? The default permissions in the system are that the president, the vice president, and the secretary treasurer, those people can enter goals. The rest of the leadership team, the educational coordinator, the event coordinator, membership committee, those types of positions, by default, they cannot. That being said, permissions are on a region-by-region basis, and the executive director controls who has access to what. So if you feel less people or more people should have access to it, please talk to your executive director. And if they need assistance, they can contact me, and I'd be happy to tell them how to do that. Does that help, Jean Marie? Jackie says thank you, and I'll say you're welcome. Thank you for being on the call with us today, Jackie. All right, that was the last question in the list. Does anybody have any questions at all about BNI or BNI Connect? Yep, Amy, and if you'd like to see other regions stuff, all we need to do is if you get permission from the executive director, I don't know what region you're in, Amy, but I can possibly help you make that connection as well with one of the people in that region that may be willing to share that information with you. Another thing that you could do is look on the BNI Central Florida website. So go to, just Google BNI Tampa, for example. So this is their regional website. Go to there, find a chapter page. Take a look at one of their chapters, and maybe you even have, I don't know what chapter you're in, but one thing that you can do is, let's say that you're in the gold mine chapter and wherever you are, send their president a message. If you're the president, so you're in DC, so whatever chapter you're in, go and look up Tampa Bay, look up one of the chapters. This chapter, and this is a smaller chapter, 20 people. I don't know if that's about the same size as your chapter, if it's larger, if it's smaller. Take a look through the chapters. The Green Machine, they have 56 members. That's a pretty strong chapter. Give Casey a call. Send Casey a message. Say, hey, Casey, I'm the president of a chapter in Washington, D.C. I would love to share best practices with you, or can you send me a copy of your chapter goals? I was playing with this in the system. Your chapter looks really impressive. You can collaborate. Also helpful for passing referrals or finding people that do stuff in other regions as well. If you're not sure of the chapter or the region or things like that, you can also always go to bniamerica.com, which will have everybody in the United States. So I could go to, let's say, find a chapter in a particular area and look through it that way as well. So bniamerica.com. All right. Any other questions? All right, if there's no other questions, just one final favor to ask all of you. Two things, actually. One is a good referral for me is if you could please let your chapters know about these webinars. All of the webinars for this series was recorded, all 5 steps of the members as well as the ones for leadership teams. They're all recorded, they're made available. I'll also be doing this whole series again next month. So please, if you have new members that come into the chapter, please direct them to the live webinars, or people that may need to know more about BNI Connect, please have them sign up for any of the live webinars. And finally, if you could please give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. I would love it if you gave us a like up there. Help me reach our goal of 10,000 likes on our BNI Connect Global Facebook page. And Facebook's been really slow to load today. Odd. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Happy connecting, everyone.